Okay, here's an example from the real world. We'll make it hypothetical, but it happens all the time in the software industry. It's an example where you can turn a common tech situation into a coachable moment. Let's say you're the lead of a software team, and there's a person on that team who feels very passionate about a specific type of technology, and they're so passionate about it that they desperately want to bring this technology in. They're convinced that it's going to make a lot of things easier, more convenient, more technically sound, and so forth. Now, there's nothing wrong with having passion. I love it. It's a beautiful thing for any occupation, in particular in tech and software. Now, where it starts to become a little bit tricky is when that passion also manifests itself in a slightly toxic undercurrent that if we don't bring this in, then everything else is going to be terrible and have negative ramifications, because that is an attitude that gets negative quickly and it becomes a slippery cultural slope for the rest of the team. So what I do in a situation like this is I just sit down and have a direct one-to-one conversation with the person, and I will say, okay, help me understand why we should choose this particular technology. Let's go through the pros and cons. Here's where it becomes coachable, however. Once I earnestly listen, and I'm honestly, genuinely doing it with the other person, I will say, okay, I've heard your perspective. Now, can we have a conversation where I share my perspective? And I never hear anyone say no to this because you're not on the defensive with each other. You're earnestly understanding each other. So my perspective on it will, of course, be a little bit more broad because I'm playing the role of the leader. And I will say, okay, if we bring this technology in, we have to be able to support it. And that means it can't just fall on you as one person. That would be a risk to the business. And I would be foolish to sign off on that if we couldn't actually handle the technology. Also, it has a ramification on who we hire in the future, because that's one more checkbox we'll need as a skill set. So there are more broad concerns than the technical purity of choosing this particular piece of software, whatever it happens to be. So I'll generally use it as a coaching moment to try to help the person understand that there's broader ramifications here. And another coachable thing here is I will actually challenge the person to do the exercise of writing a proposal. And here's how I do it. I will say, listen, one of my roles here is to remove obstacles. But the way I look at it is it's my job to say yes. And what would help me to say yes in this situation is if you would just write up your opinion, make a plan around it, show me that you've considered these things. This is actually a growth opportunity for you, because this is what I would have to do as a leader. I would need to come to the table and say, look, I'd love to introduce this technology, and here's proof that I've actually thought about the downstream effects of implementing this technology. For example, what I said earlier, how would it impact our hiring? Can the team actually handle the technology, and here's why? Would we need to staff differently? Would we need to inject some training? Does it have a budgetary impact? Is it somehow out of harmony with the rest of our tech stack? Does it cause any other dependencies from an IT standpoint? Is there a security ramification? So help me say yes by coming up with a plan. And if you would like, I will personally help you to write this plan so that you can see how I would expect it to be articulated and how I myself would have to take it and articulate it to my peers, for example, who may also be affected. So the coachable moment is to illustrate how much more there is than just thinking about a decision from a technical standpoint. Okay? And now this is an approach that I've used in this situation for real. So the situation does happen, and hopefully this gives you some tools that you can think about employing when it happens to you as a tech leader, so you can coach your staff into evolving their own skill set and looking at these problems a little bit more holistically.